yet, my name's Charlie. I'm the CEO at Year On. Today we have Chloe and Caroline, Chloe is a current cohort 14 fellow. Caroline is her mom, and they're going to talk to us a little bit today just about their journey. If you joined us last week, you kind of know how this format goes. I'm going to take Chloe through her entire experience, and Caroline will kind of have some insight in where she was at during the entire process too. We know that taking a gap year is kind of a whole family experience. It's not just for the fellow. If you have any questions, just a little overview of Zoom here. So if you scroll over probably where my face is talking right now, or if you are in gallery mode, just if you scroll over everything, you'll see on the bottom there's a couple of buttons. One is the mute. I'm going to mute all of you before we start everything. But if you have questions throughout it, you'll see this little chat box. Feel free to just ask some questions in that chat. As I am asking questions to Chloe, I'll kind of put all of those in. And then if you have anything that you want to message me privately on that chat box, you'll see it says to everyone. And then if you scroll down, you can just message me directly. And I know it says that there are 2 year-ons in here. If you just have year on as the 2 form, then it'll get to me. So with that, Chloe, do you want to start off and just introduce yourself a little bit and where you're from? And Caroline, if you could do the same. And then Chloe, if you can talk to us briefly, if we were May 6th, 2019, exactly 1 year ago, maybe you were gearing up for the last couple of weeks of high school. Where was your mind at? Were you like, I'm taking a gap year next year? Talk to us a little bit about your frame of mind.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Chloe. I'm a current fellow at Year On. So I'm from Portland, Maine, which is like probably a very, very open town compared to most. So I actually did have a lot of friends who were thinking about gap years. However, I actually was not planning at all to have a gap year, and I wasn't even looking into it. I was very dead set on going to college. So I didn't really have a very clear view, but my mom found Year On, and what I really liked about the program was just that it combined travel, volunteering, and like workshops and all of that, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, I think that's kind of what stood out to me, because I think there are a lot of gap year programs, but they have either one or the other. Like they have a volunteering, you go abroad for a year, or you have just like hardcore work. So yeah.
Cool. And Caroline, do you want to talk a little bit about, just you can introduce yourself and then maybe talk to us about the first time that Chloe brought up taking a gap year?
Sure. So as she said, I think she was in a place where she wasn't really considering the gap year possibility. And from my standpoint, it is always made a lot of sense, but it was important for her to have her own way of uncovering that, because I think it's really important that it really be whatever your student. It's really hard to sort of dictate what that is. I think it's really great for someone to come to that conclusion on their own. But from my standpoint, the fact that Chloe was feeling as though she knew that she wanted to go to college, and it's, I don't think necessary for someone to know what they want to study per se when they're going to college, but I think she needed something to anchor her, to bring her to a place where she felt like it would be meaningful for her versus just what you do next. And so when we considered that, I have already, because I work with students and do coaching anyway, so I'm always looking around and evaluating lots and lots of different kinds of learning experiences. And what stood out to me about Year On was just that the kinds of skills that they are learning and building was beyond just travel. And it really focuses on really 21st century skills, right? So communication skills and all of the other skills that I think people take for granted. So I, like Chloe, like the idea of the combination of those travel and projects and just actionable work, interesting work. and having time to pause. So, yeah.
That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Chloe, you applied, you thought that, okay, this could be a cool program for me. You applied, you obviously got in, and you go through the summer, and we are now getting to the days before you are about to take off for your first phase. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that first phase is, where you went, and what you did?
Yeah, definitely. So I went to Bali, Indonesia. It's actually this tiny little fishing village that's like near, oh my God, I'm blanking on the name.
Ubud.
Ubud, yeah, Ubud. So it's like right near Ubud. And it's a very, very small fishing village, so it's pretty rural. It's like pretty out there. But before going, I was pretty nervous. I had never gone that far out of the country before. And it was kind of just like a new experience entirely for me. So it was really nerve-wracking, especially because, you're traveling on your own. But getting there, it's like, it's a whole other experience. It's incredible. It's, you're really in touch with the culture and the people there, and you have this kind of connection to them that you would just not get in any kind of city in Indonesia, especially because it's all at the root. I feel like just where you are is so out of place of anywhere else in Indonesia. It's completely unique. And yeah, so we lived in these little like hut things, and I was on the environmental conservation side. So there was the teaching side and the environmental conservation side. And for me, every day I was making coral reef structures out of cement, dirt, and calcium. And we would make them every single morning and every single afternoon. So we'd have about like 4 to 6 hours of work every day until like Friday. And then on Friday, we would be able to have time off, and you could do like trips on the weekends. So be able to explore the island and all of the different places. Went to other islands as well, which is super cool. But yeah, it was definitely a really cool place. It's like, when I say you're like in the culture, you are like in the culture. Like you learn a bit of Indonesian. You can, there's like a little canteen that's right down the road, and the lady Ketut who owns it is like best friends with everyone. It's a really tight-knit community, and I don't think you can get that anywhere else. It's really great.
You might want to mention too, the volunteer Bali, the fact that you were not only with just the core group of the Year-On volunteers, but also this rich, very interesting group of other people from all over the place.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah. So yeah, you're not like with just Year-On kids, you're like with so many different people from so many different parts of the world. And I met people from ages like 18 to 45. So I met people who were on a huge spectrum, and it's really great because it's just full cultural immersion in any aspect. And also just you get to explore these parts of Indonesia with people that you have just met pretty much. And it's great. It's really good.
And Chloe, talk to us a little bit. So you mentioned that you were on the environmental project. Were you highlighting that because there's other things that people could do there? And is there a different place that you all live? And what does that kind of look like?
Right. So there's also the teaching side. So there's the teaching side and the environmental conservation side. And they are separate, and you do eat separately, which is something to think about. I personally thought I was going to be doing teaching and environmental conservation when I got there. But you're not able to do both of them while you're there. So that's also something to keep in mind. But yeah, the teaching side was cool. They started a little bit later in their day than I did. And actually there were only a couple people from Year-On who did the environmental conservation side, but also just because we're like separated, it also doesn't mean that you're not gonna be with the Year-On kids. Like we have meetings every week. We do activities together, and we can sometimes do like trips together, and it's kind of, it's you're all together technically. And yeah, the teaching side is great because you are actually right next to the school, and they have like 3 different schools around the area that you're kind of spread out into. So they're always needing different teachers, and they're always going in and out. Yeah, I can't talk too much about the teaching side because I didn't really experience it. But
That's great. I think just, you know, it's sometimes difficult to understand like, what the different volunteer projects are. So that's a good, at least a good overview for people. And, you know, you mentioned this briefly. Some questions that we get sometimes are, you know, you had said you're going to be working between 4 to 6 hours and the teaching is a little different. Are you able to travel at all? You know, Indonesia seems like a beautiful place. Bali seems like a beautiful place. Did you have to stay in Tianyar the entire 10 weeks, or were you able to kind of move about, and did you get to see any more of the island, and who did you do that with? And then touch about safety a little bit, and then I think we're going to kick it to Mom to how, you know, maybe she felt about you traveling.
Yeah, so you are not staying there for like 10 weeks at a time. That's a lot. Actually, there were a lot of opportunities to go outside of Tianyar. There's actually every Friday, if you're not wanting to do like a huge trip, some people do big trips where they go out to like Nusa Penida, or they go to the different bigger islands and like explore those, which is awesome, and they're totally great. But if you're wanting something a little bit closer, they have a little kind of town that it's like 40-minute drive away. And it's pretty cheap to get a car if you split it with people. That's another thing. You have to split the money with people in the car because it can get a little expensive if you're just doing it alone. But they have something called the Pacha Bar on Fridays, and everyone goes and they all dance, and it's like super fun. It's in this little village called Ahmed. And that's just more of like a less big trip that you can take if you're not wanting to like go fully, because they have hostels there too, and you can stay at hostels at different places. And the nice thing is you are the one who is planning all of the trips, so you get a big group of people together, and it's nice to kind of be able to understand how to make plans and how to know how much money you're going to spend and what you're going to do for food and all of that. So
yeah, I could speak a little bit to the safety part of it. So from the leaving from the US to Bali, I definitely felt very solid about Charlie and the way that they communicated to everybody beforehand. We had lots of Zoom meetings, chances to ask questions. Well, what is going to happen, and are they going to get met at the airport? So there was a great deal of care taken to make sure that people were met at the airport, that there was a way to communicate with Euron at any point, whether that be directly with the people that were on the ground at their location. So Chloe definitely, she has traveled internationally before by herself. That was just, so that may be different for other folks. So I felt like that was a relief, because I definitely know I've got some family members that did other gap year programs where it wasn't very organized. So there's something to be said about that. And then in terms of being there, I will say that we really wanted her to be able to have some level of independence and have that to be combined with making sure that she was supported. And that's, I think, how I would define Yura, at least from my perspective, is it's not a hand-holding. They didn't get made to do their daily, I mean, it was, you had to be accountable for what you do. Yeah. And some of that comes with a little bit more of independence and flexibility, and that parents need to understand that there isn't sort of this babysitting that happens. Right. But yeah, from my perspective, that's a massive win for them, because they are given some freedom, and then they are then held accountable for what that is. So that was meaningful, I felt, as a parent. Yeah,
definitely.
And Chloe, when you were traveling around, is Bali a safe place? You know, were you going in groups with people when you were going around? I know we always say at Year On, you got to make sure that you've got your head screwed on your body. It doesn't matter where you are. Talk to us a little bit about, you know, you as a human roaming around a place that is not your home, and what kind of care you took of yourself, and maybe what you imagined of what and how others were taking care of themselves.
So I think one thing to think about, especially if you are a woman traveling in a different country, is you definitely have to have people around you, a group. I was always around people when I was over there, especially at night. That's like a big thing. And people are very forward, and I think there is a sense of more forwardness, especially in a different country. So you really have to understand like how to kind of set boundaries and tell people no. That's a big thing. But yeah, I think the independence part of that, it's you're still able to walk around, and it's a very safe place. And I wouldn't say that I felt like super unsafe anytime I was walking around, but you do have to be aware like anywhere else you would be. But I'd say like moving around, especially in the area that you're in where you're staying, people are so insanely nice, and they're always wanting to like talk to you, and they're incredibly friendly. And you can always strike up conversations with literally anyone ever. It's great. Everyone's so sweet. So.
Cool. Well, I think, we'll move on from the explore phase here, but before I do that, I just want to say Chloe went to Indonesia. We have other international locations as well. And you can view those on the website. Chloe, this might be a difficult question to ask, but maybe if you can't get the top thing, maybe one of the top three, what do you miss the most about Bali?
Let's see. I think the biggest thing is Pacha, the Pacha bar. Just like it's where everyone dances every Friday. Man, you just get connected with people so hard there, even the singers and all of them. The other one is the trips. The trips are incredible. Like even the drives up. The driving can be a little bit sketchy because the driving is very, very different over there than it is here. So that is also something to think about.
But you didn't drive.
I didn't drive. No,
she would
no
have
driving.
Hire cars to bring.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes.
Yeah. Also, mango juice from the canteen because it was like specifically made for Indonesian mangoes, which is insane. So. Yeah.
Cool. Well, great. If anybody has any questions about Explore, feel free to put them in the chat, and we can always circle back. I want to start to switch gears into San Francisco a little bit, but I think that what will bring us to San Francisco first is to talk a little bit about coaching. So at Year On, one of the really cool things that we do is every fellow gets paired with a coach. One of the questions that was asked last week was, what is the ratio of coach to student? And the highest that we had this time was 2-to-1, but most coaches were 1-to-1. So it's just one coach to one fellow. And we have them meet with their fellows around 3 times when they are abroad, just to start building rapport so they can get to know one another. And then they go weekly in San Francisco, and then they go bi-weekly when they're in their 3rd phase. So Chloe, I guess to bring us over, talk to us a little bit about your coach. Who is she? What does she do? And, talk to us about when you were in Explore, how the two of you maybe started to interact with one another.
Yeah, so you start interacting with your coach in Explore. I will say that I was expecting to I thought I was going to meet with my coach more in Explore, but it actually only happened like a couple times, and that was more for an introduction of your coach, which was still good, but I think part of that is also that the Wi-Fi is really, really, really not great in Indonesia, obviously. So, but I will say it's really nice to kind of detach from your phone for that amount of time. It's nice to get a little cleanse of technology for a little bit. But yeah, as far as my coach, I was introduced to her in my Explore phase, and then I actually met up with her in San Francisco. So she works for Lyft, and it was really cool because I got a unique experience of like meeting her at Lyft for some of my meetings and stuff, and she's very, very helpful. She was very adaptable to what I wanted to look into more. We had a goal sheet that we went over, and overall she was just a great match for me. I felt like I could really connect with her, and she was a really easy person to talk to, and it was more of a place to lean on her if I ever needed something, or if I was looking into different topics that I was interested in. She was always very open to want to like connect me with people, or any of that. And I also got to explore Oakland because of her. I fell in love with Oakland. It's a great area. If you ever get out there, it's awesome. So yeah, she was really awesome.
Cool. I'm happy to answer any more questions that people have about coaching. I'm sure that it will come up a couple more times when we're chatting. Okay, so Chloë, you land back in the United States, you have the holidays, and then you hop on another plane and you zip over to San Francisco. What is San Francisco all about? What do you do? And maybe we'll start at what do you do and where do you live? Let's do those two first, just high level, and then we can kind of dig in a little bit more.
So basically what you're doing in San Francisco is you're having different workshops, like life skill workshops that you go to every morning. And we do it in a WeWork building, and it's on the 15th floor. It's a really cool spot. I feel really lucky that we got to do it there because it's really nice. And the workshops feel very personal, so you get to have a very close relationship with the person who's teaching them. And they're also kind of all over the place, so you have a lot of different people who are giving you information about various different topics. But also it isn't scattered, so it feels more like they're preparing you in different ways first, like looking at your values, looking at growth mindset, how you want to view what you're going to do. And then it kind of goes into like cold emailing and interviewing and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of really, really helpful career life skill type workshops, which I actually felt like I got a lot out of. And where we were living on the edge of the Tenderloin, which I will say can be a little bit weird. It is a little bit of a weird area, but since we're right on the edge of it, we're not fully exposed to that part of the Tenderloin. So we're living right on a pretty busy touristy street. So it's not that hard to kind of like walk around, but the street is a little bit, it can be a little bit weird at different points.
And you said that also added to your really becoming more street smart and going out in groups and having the experiences to see and be in a city, in a setting that you might not otherwise have had you not been with Huron, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That's a great point. And, I think that when parents sometimes ask me, oh, and we've had our dorm building all over. Usually it depends on how many students we have, and then we house them appropriately. What we aim for is for students not to be living by themselves. So Chloë, you kind of touched a little bit about when you were in Bali, how you were not just with year-on fellows, that you met like kind of this, rich group of people, everybody from people that are your peers to, people who are much older. We don't have many of the much older folks in San Francisco, but Year-On did this year partner with a university that we've partnered with in the past, and they lived with 180 other undergraduate students. And, so the building was built, it was just built for this population of students. And like Chloë mentioned, it's right on Market Street, which is the backbone of San Francisco, which is where everything goes up and down. And Chloë, how many seconds do you think it took to walk from your dorm to WeWork?
Maybe like a minute or two walk, like it's just right across the way.
So that was also, the convenience part of it, like being at the edge there, we're under no guise that like, this is a city. And these are the challenges that San Francisco deals with, and they're challenges that are not going away. And we're not trying to gloss over them. San Francisco is a great place, but it has things that it really needs to work on. And, during our time, we actually we worked with Glide, which is a foundation in the Tenderloin that actually serves the community that the students are, living adjacent to. And that's, I think, also just great exposure. Okay, so we covered a lot there. Chloë, you spoke a little bit about our workshops, and you had the through line a little bit of, we start with mindset, and then we did some habits stuff, and then we do some professional work. We got a question just around are the year-on workshops taught by staff. And I think that you touched on this briefly. So we have kind of a mixture of people that come in. One of the big things that I will say is one of my, one of the things that I'm proud of that we do at Year On is we really listen to student feedback. I know that sometimes it doesn't always feel like you can see it in real time, but Chloe can attest that we make them fill out a survey every single Friday before Friday review about every single workshop that they've taken and all of the feedback. And Chloe, before your time, we actually used to have Year On staff teach all of the workshops. So it looked a lot like school, where you would have this one person, and maybe it was me, and you would see me every day, and I would teach this new thing. But what we learned from fellows is that what they wanted to meet new people. They wanted us to like bake in a way for them to build out their network of people who are really passionate about these things. So, instead of Charlie teaching storytelling, we had someone come in and teach storytelling because she's a comic writer. She has her day job is doing something in partnerships, but she's a great storyteller, and she's the one that taught the storytelling workshop. I love Excel and Google Sheets, and I'm the one that taught that workshop. So, we kind of go back and forth, but I would say if we had to do a split, it was probably 80-20 of guest facilitators and year-on staff members, those workshops that we were putting together, actually year-on writes the curriculum and all the lesson plans to make sure that there is some kind of through point, but we make those facilitators come in and put their own spin. So we want their personal story. If they have a cooler exercise that they want to do, we say, go for it, like make it what you want it. But we also want to make sure that it makes sense. Why am I doing values now? Like when does that pop up again later on? So kind of that educational component. I'm also just going to jump quickly. I know that we spoke about coaches for a bit, talking about the coaching curriculum and what we do. Chloe, you can maybe talk about this a little bit. So we have a curriculum on the back end that coaches go through every single week. I will say that we do that as a backbone to make sure that fellows are moving in the right direction, where we'll tell, we'll say to coaches, hey, we did a resume workshop with the fellows this week. Please check in with them about their resume and offer them help if they need it. That being said, sometimes the curriculum is not followed by coaches because the goal of those sessions is for students or fellows to run them. Like we want, the ideal is that Chloe, takes that hour and says like, I'm going to use this however I need it. And to be honest, sometimes that's just like, I'm not in a hot spot right now, like emotionally, and I just need someone to listen and just nod at me. And that's okay. Like that is a totally appropriate coaching session for us. We steer away from therapy is what we tell coaches. You're not a therapist, but a lot of these coaching relationships, they grow into more like friendships where there's a real trust that exists and people feel like, I'm outside of my hour. Hey, I have this question. And coaches get back to you. But Chloe, did you feel like there was a curriculum on the coaching? Did you feel like you used it for, 100%, like you were driving the conversation? Was it a blend?
So I think it was kind of a blend. I wouldn't say that we did really talk about the workshops or what was happening. I think she wasn't completely aware about what kind of workshops I was doing, but she was aware of the things that I felt that mattered, at least for me. Like I wanted to talk about like exploring writing and also exploring photography or psychology or whatever else I was interested in. So I think she did help me in that way, which for me was beneficial, but I also know that other people kind of work in different ways. I think the goal sheet was kind of something that we were trying to keep up with, but it was also, we got so caught up in our own conversation and like bouncing off ideas that it was kind of hard to keep up with the goal sheet. But I think it's also just different for every person, I think, because I did hear some other experiences that other fellows had, and they actually felt like they did really work hard on the goal sheets, and they were talking about the workshops, and that was what was helpful for them. But personally, I just got more out of talking it out, figuring out what she can do to help me with different resources, and just someone to talk to too, because she did really feel like a friend as well. It was great to just kind of go out with her in different places in San Francisco and chat. So yeah.
Cool. And Chloe, when you were in San Francisco, did you get out of San Francisco at all? I know that you hinted at it earlier.
I did not go out. Oh, sorry. Yes, I did. I went to Oakland actually. And Oakland is really amazing. I actually I actually really like it more than San Francisco just because it has more of a community feel. I went to the art walk a few times there, and it's really beautiful. I also went to the Botanical Garden, which is in San Francisco, but that's like one of my favorite spots. I went there like 6 times. And it's really great because you're able to kind of do that alone. I did that alone. And yeah, it was good because I felt like I had a lot of freedom in Bali and also in Indonesia, which is really great. I think with both of the places, your location and San Francisco, is that it is a lot of time that you need to understand how to use and what you want to do with it, because it isn't all structure. It's a lot of figuring out what you want to do in that moment, and also getting out of the dorm, because it is really easy to just kind of sit back and do things. So I was always trying to like even take a 20-minute walk down the road to Planet Fitness. So it's like there are a lot of different things that you could be doing, but it is also not like school. So you kind of have to understand the structure part is still kind of structure, but you do put in what you get out. So
Totally. And Caroline, do any conversations stick out to you, thinking about Chloë going through the focus phase, maybe even, the growth that you saw over the 10 weeks, or times that you checked in with her and you kind of were just like, wow, this is what she's going through, that gave you a little bit more insight?
Yeah, I mean, 2 things come to mind. When she was in Indonesia, there were, and I want to make sure that people know that the Wi-Fi wasn't great, but we were able to talk to her at least maybe a couple times, maybe once a week, or maybe it depends on where they are, right? And so in the beginning it was more often, but when she was there and she shared with us that she was going to visit the ladies at the canteen, and that they completely just welcomed her, and she was learning the language, and she was reciting things in the language to me, and that just blew me away, because she was getting on a fishing boat, and then she got her diving license as a result, which is no slouch at all. So here she was, just to us it was just extraordinary that she was in this really unique place and not just peripherally getting to know communities. And then San Francisco, I would say that, there was a couple times sometimes where I could tell that things were getting challenging, because COVID was just beginning when she wound down from that. So I think it wasn't all perfect, but I felt really inspired by the fact that she was able to bring herself from feeling like she wasn't getting it out of the room as much, and she really wanted to take advantage of stuff. So she just managed, and I'm sure a lot of that was the workshops and the people and her coach. She just got really driven, and she stood by it, and she got through it. And that was, to me, those are the big things, right? The things you can really feel accomplished about. So that was pretty powerful.
Totally. And, I think that, Chloë, you have kind of you had a special path. A part of our curriculum at Year On top of the workshops that we do, we dedicate some longer periods of time in what we call work sprints for fellows. And they are these kind of 36-hour periods where fellows just kind of go all in on something that they want to just jam out on. We do 3 of them over the course of the time that fellows are in San Francisco. Chloë, let's start with your first work sprint, because I think that, I think you blew everybody away with it. Me, definitely. But can you talk to us a bit about, you just heard my overview. What is a work sprint like from a fellow's perspective, and what did you do your first time around?
Yeah, so I love work sprints. They're so much fun. It's basically where you get to really choose any topic that you're interested in and just go super hard on it for like 36 hours. My friend Abby and we went a little crazy on the first night, and we spent pretty much the whole night until like 3 a.m. at WeWork just working on it, which we didn't need to. Actually, we had enough work that could be spanned out in 2 days, but we decided to finish it all in one night. But my first work sprint, I made a mindful magazine, basically. And I wrote like 8 different articles and put them in there. And then I had my own photography. And I'm actually still kind of editing it a little bit, because I do want to put it out there, but I did actually get a hard copy of it, which is really awesome. And it was a very proud, like I feel very proud about it. Yeah, I think I will say that work sprints are not easy. You know, they're supposed to be for you to challenge yourself. And I was actually really blown away by other people who did them. There were a lot of people who had told me like, oh, I have no idea what I want to do. But there was one person who like learned how to code in just like a night, or he was trying to figure out how to make a Raspberry Pi like circuit board work somehow. And he was really like going outside of himself to just do this. And I was like, holy cow, like that's so cool. And there's a lot of people who were just discovering so many different things. And it was just kind of inspiring to see people like make video games or like
What about the
do
comedian?
some photography stuff. Or yeah, there was a comedian in our group who like did an entire comedic album, and he like, I guess he's going to put it on Spotify or do something with it. And now he actually has a podcast, which is really cool. So you can really make a lot of stuff with just 36 hours. And I will say it's like super daunting, especially thinking about what you want to do. Even the hours before starting it, I was like, I have no clue. What am I going to do? I have no idea. But once you have so much support around you, we had Lucy and William, who are both of our RAs. They were always there to talk things out. Because I know there were some people who just had absolutely no idea what they wanted to do. But it is a time definitely to explore that. And I thought that was really awesome.
It was cool. And Caroline, I don't know if I remember when Chloe first got that physical book. You know, I don't know what your reactions were when you first saw that, but for me, I was like, what is happening right now?
I know.
Just 36 hours. I mean, this wasn't like, you know, it was a 2-week, 3-week project. It was, you know, she just like, and that morning, to be fair, you know, I looked at Chloe and she was like, I didn't get that much sleep. And I was like, shit, you got through it all.
Well, that blew me away. And really, that really was the beginning of her, and she'd already liked to write, but that project essentially lifted off a period of, now she's on Medium, and you can follow her on Medium, and even, so it sort of catapulted this, oh yeah, I can do this. I'm going to just try this, and I'm actually going to just do it. And
right.
So that just do it, you just don't have that many opportunities at, you know, post high school to do that. You just don't. So that just, blew me away.
I think also the other thing, which was great, is that you have a group work sprint as well. So you can work with other fellows. So I got to work with a photographer and an artist, and we all combined our artistic skills, and we made an article. So I wrote an article about different forms of expression. So we interviewed different people around San Francisco and asked them what their form of expression was. And we basically quoted them, wrote about them, and then the artist like drew a picture of them, of how she portrayed them to be. So it was a very like abstract, really fun project, because we did like a photo shoot, and it was really fun.
Every once in a while I get emails from people, and I never know, like, when the community is emailing us about fellows, if they're going to tell me that, like, you know, this happened and you need to come and clean this up. But I got one email from someone who was talking about Chloë, Abby, and Micaiah's work sprint. And they were like, did you know that your classroom was turned into like a New York Fashion Week like studio for them to shoot this entire thing? Have you been up there yet? And I hadn't. And it was kind of amazing to walk in, and, you know, I was a photographer, and she like totally improvised this backdrop that then they like had the, you know, and these photos that came out of it, and this huge Medium post that Chloe posted was just like, it was unreal. I mean, it was really something like, you felt like you were looking at this like Vogue-like thing. And again, it was just 36 hours, and everybody, you know, is exhausted by the end of it, but you come out of it and you're like, that's a portfolio piece that I will always have. And I'm proud of what I was able to do during that time. So really though, Chloe, I have to say bravo to you. I think that you took Year-On's work sprints to the next level for us. For now, every subsequent fellow cohort, I'm going to be able to say, this is a great idea of the direction you should go. So thank you. All right, so we've gone through a little bit. Talk to us a little bit about hanging out with other fellows. Did you guys get to explore a little bit of San Francisco together? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think there were definitely moments where we went outside and kind of explored different food places, or we just like went over. I think some people went to Land's End, which is a really cool, just kind of scenic area. Abby took some really awesome pictures of that. But yeah, I felt like I was close to some of the fellows. I would say that I am a pretty like independent person, so I wasn't like completely in all of the friend groups, but that's okay. But it also didn't feel like I was excluded. I never felt that way. I felt like we were all just very much doing our own thing, but also we were all there for each other, which was nice. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I felt like I was close to most of the fellows, and it was nice to kind of have that comfort of people around you.
Cool. And take us all the way to capstones. I mean, 10 weeks was really 9 weeks. We had to, unfortunately, our last week was online because of COVID-19, which was unfortunate, but a move that we had to make. The city of San Francisco did a really great job in making sure that we shut down and tried to flatten the curve as soon as possible. And as soon as we kind of saw those signs, we sent students home. We sent them home at the end of week 9, just 1 week before their capstone events. But Chloë, you still did a capstone, a 2-minute presentation that culminated everything, all of your learnings. What would you say, if you had to, not in 2 minutes, but some high level, what'd you learn about yourself over your time in Bali and in San Francisco?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I personally learned is how to be truly independent and be more comfortable with my decisions, because I definitely think that I am a very indecisive person, and things can get jumbles very easily. So understanding how to organize things and how to figure out how to spend my time was really important. And I think the other thing also was part of the confidence thing is setting boundaries for myself and other people, and knowing myself better in that sense. And also just being more open to things, because you really have to be open to whatever experience that you're having. Because I know there was some difficulty in Bali for a lot of people, just on the side of, like, we thought there was going to be more of like a high school structure there, but there wasn't. So there was a lot of grapple around that. But overall, people really learned from that. And that's the important thing, definitely.
Cool. And Chloë, we have this third phase that I know was appended by obviously COVID, but someone asked, what is or would have been Chloë's launch?
Yes. So I actually was going to do an internship in Boston for my third phase. I had had an internship that I was going to do. I was going to be blog writing and doing social media for a organic tampon company that donates to different homeless shelters as well. And yeah, so that was going to be my launch phase. Yeah, and I was very excited for that. But I'm actually currently doing social media for Year On. So it actually all worked out. I feel like I am doing something that I actually really like. And I'm doing some writing. I did a little blog post for them as well, which was nice. So yeah, I think it did work out. I would say I am kind of sad that I wasn't able to go to Boston and do that, but launch phase is cool. I think there were a lot of people who had plans to do some cool things during launch phase. So, yeah.
Cool.
I wanted to add in there that it seems like Chloë was able to figure out how to manage an unknown. And I think that her ability to do that today would have been a whole other story a year ago. So for all of that, of being able to be learning how to be resilient and have things that change and pivot, I mean, that's what we're all trying to learn, even as adults. You know, that's the skill of the day, isn't it?
Right.
Oh, very, very true. We're coming up on our, in the last couple of minutes here, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. But I want to quickly ask the two of you if there's any advice that you could give people who are considering a gap year. So Chloe, if you could talk about it from, your perspective, as a high school grad, and Caroline, if you could talk about it as a parent, what would that advice to prospective people who are thinking about taking a gap year be?
Yeah. So I think the first thing about deciding to do a gap year, I would say that I feel really lucky because I've had two parents who were really supportive of me taking a gap year, and I know that there were some fellows who didn't feel the same way. So I would say that, of course, don't feel like you should be pressured to go a certain way, especially people around you. But I think you should be able to understand that your path is your path, and whatever is next for you should be specifically for you. And then the other thing is just that, like I said, you get out what you put in. So it isn't going to be set up for you, and you can really go to these workshops or you don't. And that's kind of like on you to go and get things that are really valuable in this experience. So I think learning how to be independent in that way is important. But also you have support if you feel like you're not organized enough or you don't have the tools that you need to get that push, then there's always people around you that will help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
I'd say that the two areas that, as a parent, that usually play a part in trying to figure out if the gap year is from the family standpoint makes sense. And I think there's two things I think about. One is financial, because I think I definitely felt, well, gee, we've got to do college and we're doing this, right? So my answer to that now is this investment of time, just financially, is almost it's something that I think students never have a chance to take advantage of. And the world has changed so much that just jumping into college is not making a whole lot of sense anymore, because whatever that direction is, whether it's 4 years or if it's 2 years or whatever it is, I think the pause gives students a better perspective. And so that value is going to be, it comes back in spades, that investment of a year. And then the other side to me would be that that the person that she's become has been an extraordinary growth in 1 year. And that just simply was, would be a whole different ballgame if she jumped right into college. I can't really put it into words, but that's the way I think about it. Is it's a growth and a feeling of that it's going to be okay. She's going to figure life out, and I don't think she could have done this without that. So,
cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Is there anything that we'll wait to see if anybody has any questions. If not, we might be giving a couple of minutes back to people. But Chloe or Caroline, is there anything that I missed?
No, just questions though. I suppose that you'll get the questions, and afterwards you can have people be answering those, because I know that that's where I was we had questions, right? Detailed questions.
I don't know.
I think you covered everything. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Well, I appreciate everybody showing up tonight. I think, like I had mentioned maybe on the beginning of the call, a big thing for us is we are trying to make this an experience for, high school grads, so they can, take that pause or take that step back or understand more about who they are and what they want to do. And Chloe, I know that, you have really just held on to this language, which I love so much, that you're only going to get out of your year what you put into it. That's not just true for year on, right? And that's true for anything you do in life, really. You can't expect that things are just going to be done. And this is it's a big growing opportunity. There's a lot of time, Chloe can attest, that you sit with yourself, that you really, you have some not great thoughts. You're like, what am I doing? And that's okay. And I think that this is a time, to Caroline's point, that we don't really get in life. It kind of starts off, we're in this hyper-structured environment our entire life. You go off to college, there's not that much structure. And then before you know it, you're in the working world, and the story continues to go, right? So, I think that building in this time for people to really think about who they are and what they want to do is important. I wish I would have done it when I was younger. It's one of the biggest reasons why, I was excited to build a program like this. But, as we, continue on, if people have questions, feel free to, email us and ask them. We're going to try and do some more of these between now and, the time that our program launches in August. For those of you that don't know, tomorrow I'm actually going to be on a Zoom from 4 to 5 as well. Unfortunately, I won't be joined by these two ladies. It will just be me. I'll be going over kind of how we're thinking about our program for this fall, and what we're looking at because of the fact that we are in this COVID-19 world. So I'll have some more information to share about that, and hopefully be able to field some of those questions and answer them to the best of my ability. So if you haven't been able to sign up for that, it was in the newsletter in the same spot that this was in. Feel free to drop your name. If you can't find that, just shoot an email to hello@yearon.com and we'll get you that sign up link. But I just want to thank Chloe and Caroline so much for taking the time this evening. This was great. Chloe, thanks for sharing your experience. It's great to just, I was standing almost side by side with you walking through it, but it's always nice to hear it on the back end. And I will see you on Friday for our one-on-one for our social media. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.